In today's digital world, where we store most of our information in the cloud, keeping it safe from hackers and prying eyes is crucial. So, to understand the existing state of cloud security in organizations, our host Mr. Pranav Paraskar spoke with industry expert Mr. Gorakh Sirsikar. Mr. Gorakh is a professional in cloud computing and an expert in cloud security, having worked in the IT industry throughout its evolution over the last 3 decades. During our conversation with him, we attempted to get a deeper insight into the multiple aspects of cloud security and the ways in which it can be enhanced in organizations. So, let's see what we learned.
Let's begin the conversation with a very classic question
Okay.
that often provides valuable insight. So, can you just tell us a bit about yourself and your experience in cloud computing?
Mhm. Definitely. So I will keep it my experience limited to the cloud computing because I've had experience in different industries, and my actual work experience started much before even I graduated because I had access to computing as such in the 90s when I was like 11 years old, and I started working with programming and computers before internet had arrived in India officially. Although internet was also not a big thing globally, but particularly in India, I remember it arrived around 95, 96, and it was some time before the internet became the cloud and it became mainstream. So I've been working on technologies as they evolved over time, and my experience beginning with the cloud, which is a pretty recent term compared to the 30-35 years that I'm talking about, uh, that happened because the word was derived from like the equivalent of location-less infrastructure or location-less resources, right?
Yes.
Earlier, everything was a server which was in someone's office or someplace physical, and you always had to refer to a network with a physical location equivalent. But then the internet took away the need for identifying that location. It could be a server as far as you can think in the world, anywhere around the, halfway around the globe, and you still could access it as fast as your local computer. And then that became multiple locations at one time, and that is how the word cloud came in. So my experience in cloud computing or enabling people and organizations to make use of this has been almost as long as the cloud has existed, the internet has existed, and I've had the good fortune of working with teams of all sizes, or at least a variety of sizes ranging from 50,000 members of an organization to a multi-billion dollar cloud computing company, which provides service a software as a service for a certain specific sector, and individual projects, international projects, which have impact on the United Nations initiatives. So I've had a wide variety of experiences and good fortune to work with all these teams, which had these variety of challenges that they were facing, and I could contribute my own uh, to provide those solutions or enable better solutions, better security, and put a perspective in place.
You have seen the landscape of cloud computing evolve throughout your career,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So,
Yes.
where do you think it is headed right now?
So I think uh, I'll just put a quick example. Have you followed the recent launch of this device called Rabbit R1? I'm not sure if it's the Rabbit R1 or the Rabbit One or R1. I don't know what's the exact name, but it's a mobile device which was launched as an alternative to the smartphone, which is almost like a squarish camera or a squarish screen with a camera and a scroller, like a physical scroller. Of course, it has a touch screen, but It is a very revolutionary concept. I think got launched like a few days ago. I'm not sure how many days ago, but that is how fast and how far the cloud is has gone or has progressed, and how fast it will go even further from here, because that device is basically trying to replace the conventional smartphone, that is your iOS and Android devices, which are app based operating systems. These devices are trying to replace those apps and the interface of each app to just one command prompt where you just talk to the phone. So something like I want to play a song from Spotify, and what they will do is just talk to the phone, play this song, and the device is based on a large action model, not a large language model, as the founder has liked to put it, which basically means it is not just understanding what you say and putting data back, it is doing actions for you. So actually interacting with the APIs of Spotify and playing the song for you. So it might not sound very revolutionary, because I think Siri and Alexa and Cortana can also do these kind of things for you. But it goes beyond just playing songs and booking tickets. It actually refines the kind of information that is coming from these apps and the APIs, and it is coming from all different places, right? And it is computing it and even acting on it to the extent that you have to just confirm the action. You don't have to actually input stuff. You don't have to. There is, I mean, they're trying to get rid of this multiple layers of interaction that we still do with the smartphone. So, for example, I want to book a cab. I open the Uber app. I can talk to it, but it's just replacing my typing with talking, not doing much more than that, right?
Yes.
But that is how powerful it is becoming, because the cloud can now provide for such processing power, provide for that large action model to, or the conventionally known large language models, which is basically a chat GPT, to provide that kind of processing runtime, like immediately, no lag in between.
I mean, that's wonderful. That's
Yeah.
just amazing, and the tools are just so powerful these days, you know. And there is a saying, with greater power comes greater responsibility. And
Yes.
by responsibility, I mean with these devices there is also concern of security. So, in your opinion, how do organizations which are in the field of cloud generally
Right.
perceive the level of security offered by the cloud service providers? I
So,
mean,
a quick question. Do you mean the organizations who are providing the cloud services, or those organizations who are using them or paying for them?
uh, I would say it question goes for both actually.
Okay. Because the answer varies
Answer,
diametrically opposite,
yes,
right? The cloud providers are pretty good at providing security, but also it varies on the scale of things, like how big is the cloud provider, right? If you are talking, say, let's take a common example. Google provides cloud-based email services with
yes,
Gmail, right?
Gmail,
So
right?
does Microsoft. So does Zoho. But these are multi-billion companies. If you compare these with a next door startup, or somebody doing, a custom setup on a server and trying to run some open source software, uh, technically they will also be classified as cloud providers of email, but not comparable, right? Totally
Yes,
not comparable. So one of the reasons why that happens is also because of the economies of scale. One of the prime benefits that was sold why people and companies should move to cloud was the economies of scale, which means the more number of people who move to cloud, the cheaper it will become for the providers to provide the service, which is also true, right? If there were only 100 companies using Gmail, would not have been so efficient and developing so fast. But at the same time, when you are using or choosing a cloud provider, you have to keep this in mind. You have to study what scale the provider has reached, how they have reached there, and what are the kind of abilities or limitations in terms of providing security services. However, if you are the user, as in the organization who's paying for the services and using it for its team members, it's a whole different mix of challenges. And honestly, it starts with the people. It ends with the people. I mean, it is kind of obvious that it has to be people, but I'm not talking about the people who develop it. I'm talking about the people who use it.
Use it.
Admins, C-level permissions, people, and then down to the last person. Why am I saying this? Is because if you look at how the threats have turned out in terms of success versus failure, there have been a lot of vulnerabilities which were very critical but never got exposed, because it also needs complex developers to exploit that kind of vulnerabilities, right? But there were vulnerabilities which were not that critical. Like if you go through the trends of how threat vectors, or how the threat paths have evolved over times, it is mostly the low vulnerabilities which are not so critical, but they get exposed more often because of the people involved. Bad practices, sharing access tokens, insecure APIs, not using proper password management, or not using two-factor authentication, sharing OTPs over phone just because, like, I want to get the work done right now. Who cares? Nobody's going to hack the whole system right now. Of course not. In fact, it even goes to the extent of how much people write about their organizations and the work in a blog, because they might not name the company, but it's very easy to figure out where Paras is working. You visit his LinkedIn, or you visit his, any professional network page, and you figure out where all he has worked. And based on what references you provide, it is easy to figure out, oh, these are the practices being used at that organization. Cool. We can go and hack them. It's easy. So it's
Right.
always people. And also when it comes to policies, it is people, as to who are the people who are forming these policies, who are the people who are implementing these policies. Are these people competent enough, or do they have the vision to understand what all exposure points the organization can have? So I would say when it comes to users, it is mostly the people who are involved, and what they are doing causes more problem than the systems, or the software per se.
So the scale of users which the
Mhm.
organization has, so also affects the level of security that the service cloud service provider can provide. Am I right?
It's basically resources, right? I
It's a
mean,
resource.
the
Yes.
the bigger the organization, the more data they have, the more globally spread out user base they have. So the more exposed they are to intelligence about
Yes.
how the cloud services are evolving,
Right.
what
Right.
are the new threat vectors that are coming out, where are they? I mean, what threat paths are they leading to, and what are the ways to fix it, right?
Yeah. Right. Right.
So unless you have experts in your team who can work with a smaller cloud provider, it is better that you go with a more established, more secure cloud provider. I mean, I'm not saying just bigger ensures everything, but chances are they are following more good practices and best practices than not.
Yeah. That was great. That you cleared a misconception that I had about
Uh-huh.
the cloud service provider. So, in your opinion,
Mhm.
what are the most significant challenges that the organizations face while providing the
Mhm.
security in the cloud?
So this is again cloud providers, or
Uh,
the 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 users.
the providers, I would say,
Okay.
because people, the audience here wants to get insight from the perspective of industry, and
Right.
that's
So I would say it is the lack of knowledge about what is going on in the market, which is a lot, because it's not just the area or the business region or whatever the scope region area of the organization is, right? It could be a pan India organization, for example. It could be a local central India organization, for example. But the threats they're facing are coming internationally, right? The vulnerabilities that crop up in the software that they're using, or the cloud infrastructure they're using, they are global. It's not limited to the region of their operation. So when it comes to cloud services, or information technology in general, I would say people need to read a lot about what is going on in the cloud services that they're using in the market. uh, Also a bit on the, stuff which is not mainstream, like not available in tech blogs. There are a lot of threats and vulnerabilities that are being shared by security blogs or security companies where experts write their individual blogs. At least we should be aware of what is going wrong, because unless we know, how are we going to fight it, right?
Right.
I'll give you another good example. And this happened, I think, as recent as yesterday. Um, People keep sharing this video. I don't know. I think it is somewhere from around Delhi or Uttar Pradesh. I'm not very sure. But a person talking in Hindi is showing how, how those poor guys who come to uh, clean your windshield on a
Yeah, on
red light or
signals.
something.
Yes.
And this person is trying to record him and tries to show how this person wearing some kind of a smartwatch is scanning his fast tag, and how the money is being taken away from the fast tag, right? Absolutely fake. But it is still roaming around. Like, as recently as yesterday, I saw it in some group, and I'm amazed to know that people have no clue that fast tag is a closed system. It's not open to any Tom, Dick, and Harry to come and just scan the code and withdraw the money. It won't go anywhere. Fastag money only goes to those bank accounts which are tied specifically to the I'm forgetting the name, but it's the National Toll
NHAI.
Plaza in
If I'm
something.
right.
It has to be like that toll plaza at a particular location tied with a banking, or rather a bank account of a particular bank, and only those combinations have to be registered, verified, and only then can the fastag be charged. It cannot be charged to like some random person who's just scanning some watch. And I don't know what the video is pretty catchy, because the watch kind of lights up a little when he's going over the fastag. I don't know what's happening in the video, but it has been clarified many times by the NCPI, the Fastag Authority, Paytm, everybody, that this is not possible, right? But
Right.
people believe in such stuff. So it's basically lack of understanding, which leads to the challenges. Because suppose I'm a security head of a company, right?
Right.
And I bring out 5 policies. What good are those policies if I don't understand the level of understanding of these technologies of everybody involved in the company? I can say whatever I please, like, oh, two-factor authentication, everyone compulsory. Now tomorrow, 500 employees are coming in, and they're like, "Arey, we cannot log in, we cannot use this, we cannot use that. What has happened?" Oh, two-factor authentication. They don't even know what two-factor means. Authentication is another complicated word. Just because I am in technology and I understand all this, I have to have the empathy to understand the problems that people are going to face. And that's why I said it starts with people and kind of ends with people in
People.
terms of how you design it.
So these concerns mean, like the thing you the video you saw and about the NHAI.
Right.
So people are not aware about that it is a
Yes.
closed system,
Yes.
right? So only the NHAI or the whoever is the authority, only they
Right.
can do the operations, right, for money
Right.
deduction or whatever it
Exactly.
is. So this is on the side of user. I would say this misconception is there.
Right.
And how do these challenges differ from the on-premise challenges? So
Mhm.
how do these affect these challenges, the on-premise challenges?
So on-premise was easy compared to cloud, I would say, definitely. But without fueling the misconception that cloud is insecure. Cloud is not insecure by itself. It is just difficult to monitor and keep secure. Why? Because there are multiple layers of complications that we add. So, for example, if you are in a closed network which doesn't go or connect with anything outside campus, right? Then there is a physical limitation to protect it. It just doesn't connect outside. But now, imagine a cloud which, first of all, is not based anywhere near where you are. So the first point of contact is connecting outside, which starts with the internet, the kind of encryption that you're using or not using, the kind of firewalls that you're using. And it goes all the way to the layers of new challenges. COVID comes in, work from home. Everybody has now, started in some way or the other supporting work from home. Moms with kids, you can stay home, work from home. Perfectly fine. What device are they using? Maybe it's a company laptop, but what Wi-Fi are they using? Because some people like to brag, they go in like a cafe and sit there and share photos that I'm working from a cafe. Perfectly fine. But from an IT security point of view, from a cloud security point of view, this is a hazard, right? What network are you using? Are you doubly sure that this network is secure? Maybe it is not actively collecting any data of what you are being, exchanging with your server, but it can insert malware, which can eventually connect with some other server, right? It can insert ransomware. I mean, it's not just about the current perceptive threat that we are talking about. It just opens up more gateways and layers of complications for the security person. uh, we have device, we have networks, we have encryption, then we have identity theft, right? A lot of cloud services these days have based their authentication with this one access or one auth thing. How how securely are you using your authentication in these public places? These are the kind of challenges that we are adding versus an on-premise thing. An on-premise thing, you have to be locally connected. So the physical layer of security is added to it. If you're not in the network, you don't have any access. But with the cloud, that's not true. As long as you're authenticated, even if it's done by someone else posing as you, as long as you're authenticated, your account details are all open. Whatever is accessible to you is accessible to the same person. And the worst part is you cannot detect whether a current connection is actually valid authentication or some kind of a spoof, or it's super difficult because there are like hundreds and thousands of people connecting at the same time. You cannot call up everybody saying, "Oh, hello, Pras, did you just connect?" Oh, okay, fair enough, no problem. Because you're going to connect and disconnect like 100 times in a day. So those kind of challenges add up as compared to an on-premise system or a network.
So I can infer that some people also have a misconception that cloud is insecure,
Hmm.
right? Some people have that
Yes,
misconception, but if we follow safe practices and
yes.
some cloud services which are which can be highly reliable, like we have suppose Google, we have
Mhm.
AWS, and these are pretty much secure and safe to use if we follow good user practices, right?
Yes,
So
and there are also configurations which matter. So, for example, uh, when you configure these cloud services, Google, for example, is a very good example in terms of what kind of smart threat detection they provide, right? But you have to configure it. Out of the box, they provide a little bit. For example, you want to use, say, Google Workshoe, right? The most common example I give you. And your users are now logging in from a strangely different location. For example, they are supposed to log in from somewhere around Mumbai, and they just happen to log in from uh, Andaman and Nicobar. Google is going to double check and ask you for an extra layer of verification that day because your account is not supposed to log in from that place. Excuse me. Now, this is good, But if this needs to be tightened further because you know that a certain team members or a certain set of your team members are never going to leave India, then you have to also configure further layer of security saying forget about additional layer of verification, just stop these kind of accesses. There is no need for these set of people to access from out of India. And if they do have a need, they'll call us. They need a physical verification and an authentication from the central IT team to be able to access it. So this is provided, but you need to configure it, for which you need to know it and envision that, oh, this is something we can ensure. And it's very easy to do, right? These are all like no code kind of solutions. It's like configurations that you can do in the system, but you need to do it.
Yeah, that's right. So we have to configure it. It's up to us how we configure it for it to be secure for a particular level. As we need,
Yes,
we can configure as per our requirement. And
yes,
the cloud services are also highly scalable. And
yes.
I guess they are somewhere oriented around the clients or users need. They are
Mhm.
designed like that to support and fulfill all the users need remotely,
Right.
whether it may be software platform or any other thing.
Anything,
So
storage, infrastructure.
storage infrastructure, yes, there are
It could
multiple
be
things.
anything that is provided as a service through the cloud.
Yeah,
Could be analytics of what you're doing. It could be like an analytics service, or it could be even you know just computing service. Like you have stuff which you do on your premise, but then you need larger resources for some computing needs. You can just throw that off to a cloud. No need to, it's like rent your infrastructure
yeah,
out.
renting out
But
the infrastructure.
unless you configure the whole thing properly, security is always going to be questioned.
So, what are the current and emerging threats that the
Mhm.
organizations are particularly should be vigilant about in cloud environment, like and how to
So,
stay ahead of these threats?
so if you remember, I started by mentioning about being aware of things, right? That is number one. I mean, it sounds very trivial, but that is where a lot of organizations and their team members they fail at being ready for prop challenges, that they are not aware of all possible things that can go wrong. Of course, you cannot like always be aware of everything, but at least be actively proactively aware of new things that are happening, at least the ones which are known very well, uh, which is not the case, right? How can I say this? If you look at any typical security problem, whether it's a malware or a scam or whatever, you see so many organizations keep on getting attacked on those same vectors for a while. Like gets exposed. I think once or twice it has happened. It is exposed in the market. Everybody knows about it. People have already started working to fix it, but the companies keep getting affected by it for a while. Why does this happen? That is because even if it is out in the market, people are just not aware of it. Even if the fix is out in the market, people are not aware that they have to, incorporate that fix or change the configurations or whatever, change the policies to change the configurations. And it could be bureaucratic challenges sometimes, but the very first thing is people are just not aware. But then apart from the awareness, there's the preparedness, like whatever new things you're using, right? So APIs now is a mainstream way of doing things, but there are so many insecure APIs that people are using. uh, Identity management, as I said, is a very new thing. Everybody is trying to provide every access, like what is a multi-cloud or a hybrid cloud. So suppose a company is using multiple cloud providers, could be for the same service, could be for different services. The companies try to provide one authentication service to all these multi-cloud interfaces. But the problem there also is that if that one authentication is hijacked, that identity is hijacked, then that hijacker also has access to all the multi-cloud services that this person was having. Excuse me. So from awareness to making sure whatever new services you're including or incorporating, they're all secure uh, to the best possible network standards that there are today, and to make sure the configurations, the policies that you design are also up to date uh, in terms of the most secure practices that are being used in the market. That is where people need to focus on. And there are growing number of cloud services. Everybody, if you know, like the teams which were never using, I mean, they were using software a lot, but they were never using cloud services. For example, a good example is the design teams who were using, Adobe software or Corel or something like that. They were never using cloud services, right? All those softwares were very heavy. They were run locally or on local servers and local networks. But now everybody's using Canva, and even corporates are moving to Canva. Adobe has provided cloud services equivalent to Canva. Well, not exactly equivalent, but they're trying to play catch up on that. Figma is the new standard. So many different number of cloud services have cropped up and gotten integrated into the day-to-day work, that it is not necessarily the primary cloud service that exists which has the most number of services where the threat comes from. The threat, because of practices that the users are going to put into place, they're going to use similar passwords for similar accounts of the company. So they might be having a Canva account, and they might be having like an AWS account. And if they share the passwords, that's beginning of a major problem right there. So policies need to incorporate this.
Yeah, what steps are the organization taking to move from being awareness, being aware to getting prepared?
Right,
Apart from we have policies in, so organizations have policies that are in place, and but
right.
what other steps the organizations are taking?
So honestly, I would say organizations can do more. And this is not just I can safely say this because I don't have a product to sell in the sector. Right? I'm not selling any service or anything. So I don't have any interest involved in it, but I can safely say that most organizations can do much more. And having worked with organizations which are multi-billion dollars, right, who have access to so much funds and resources, even they share their passwords over WhatsApp. I'm telling you,
Oh, really?
what? Yes, and not just sharing passwords. I know, like I don't want to name anything, but A company using B company's software as a service platform shares one single account across three different agencies globally: US, UK, and India. They're just rotating that thing, and sometimes it's like, oh, I don't know how I got logged out. It's like, oh, that's because somebody else might have logged in. Like seriously, you can't have like a team member access. It takes what, 10, 20, 15, I don't know, $100 a month. It doesn't actually take that much. But for a multi-billion dollar corporation, their primary project, I'm not talking about something side project of a personal employee or something like that. I'm talking about something very critical to them. They're sharing their password on WhatsApp saying, oh, if you do get logged out, try logging in again and inform us on the group saying I am using it. This is the where I was talking about, awareness, people understanding, and people being the core to the problem. It's not the software as a service provider which is the problem. It's one of the best in the world. It's not the core policies of the company. It's just the amount of effort and significance that people associate with security. They don't. They can do way more than what is happening right now. And that is why I was so happy when I heard about your initiative to launch these interviews. There has to be way more awareness in terms of security, not just for the cloud and the entire infrastructure, but on an individual level as to what all can go wrong. because we literally live in a world where we can lose all our earnings of life because they're stored digitally in a bank, which can be accessed, you know, by various different problematic ways,
Right.
and we need to be secured against that. So right from that small problem to like a whole big organization having a data breach, or losing all the sensitive information they've stored for the users, it could be anything.
There must be some compliance and regulatory considerations in
Mhm.
place. So, how do these compliance and regulatory requirements impact the cloud security strategies? Like, how do
So
they affect it?
definitely there are compliance requirements. There are different set of compliance requirements. If you are dealing with say a European market, then there are higher set of compliance requirements that you have, particularly dealing with privacy and personal data, and the security of the information that you store. And there's an American standard for everything. For example, if you're dealing with healthcare in America, there's a HIPAA standard that you have to comply with, right? You cannot just store data the way you want if you're in a healthcare setup. It could be a startup, could be an individual clinic, could be a platform. They all have to follow HIPAA regulations and compliance requirements. The problem is these are separate, individual, sector specific, and they're all good, but they're mostly the awareness is restricted to bigger organizations and bigger development teams, as against how it should be, which is like everybody using must be aware of it, because increasingly the services and the cloud infrastructure is being provided as accessible to everyone. Earlier, if somebody had to use Amazon's web services, they had to be really an expert in AWS to use those services, to even understand how what is working. Normal developers would not understand AWS services, right? But now everybody is in a rush to provide no code, low code, click and drag and drop kind of services. So more and more people feel that, oh, I can do that. It's not a problem. I can make a mobile app. I can make a website. I can make a platform kind of a thing where I can, start offering services. Definitely, and it's a very good thing. But as you said in the beginning, with more power comes more responsibility, and here
Right.
is where the challenge is going to be. That the less technologically oriented or technologically educated people start making technological solutions or start using these infrastructures like the cloud more and more, the less they are going to be aware about the threat or uh, the security challenges involved in it, because they are not coders, they're not developers, they don't have that background. And the same comes with the management policymakers. If they are not aware, just compliance won't solve everything, because compliance is a few years behind the hackers, the problem creators, right? The compliance is happening once a new problem is found out, then it is reported and people are like, okay, now we should do this. Like the GDPR requirement has come up now. 10 years ago, it wasn't heard of. But just like that, the compliance takes time to catch up. I would say it is better to be ahead of the compliance and invest in regular audits, invest in approaching experts of the industry to know what is the problem, what could be the problem, and fix it before it even surfaces, or try to uh, you know push it outside the boundaries of possibility. If not completely fix it, try to make a policy that it does not affect you. The more you can keep ahead of all these things, the more secure and easy your life will be.
So, how do you think organization मतलब organizations या industries अभी जो है
Mhm.
cloud field में या provider suppose, so
Right.
वो इन challenges को कैसे navigate कर पा रहे हैं या फिर आपको लगता है कैसे कर सकते हैं और better तरीके से when it comes to compliance and regulatory.
So again, I'm repeating it at the cost of sounding boring, but number one is starting with awareness of the people who are the experts, right? The
Right.
security heads and the security teams of a particular organization, they need to be proactively understanding what is happening in the market. They need to figure out how the newer threats or vulnerabilities can affect their organization, proactively, not just follow like a standard or a compliance set of things that they must do, but on top of it they must think of what can come uh, over and above that, what can be a problem tomorrow, and try to fix that in the design stage of things. So for example, let's say a company has a big uh, set of cloud services they're using, and there's a proposal to bring in a new set of cloud services with a new service provider. Can can the security team evaluate the readiness of this cloud provider in terms of the security that exists with them, and in terms of, I mean, compare that with what already exists with their existing cloud vendors? Can it can it see the challenges in integrating this in the workflows of different teams that are going to use it? And can it put in place a monitoring technology, I mean a monitoring workflow to figure out, say, how frequently can new threats affect this integration, right? That is the biggest and the easiest way to going around it. But then that also involves awareness of the users, all the people in the system, in the workflow, who are going to touch the cloud services. How does that happen? What are the interaction points? What are the devices? How often are those devices changed? What happens to those devices which are discarded? Do they get completely formatted before they are being, upcycled or recycled or whatever? I mean, this is not just the cloud, it is everything that is connected to the cloud that the problem can come up in.
So
It's
everything
not
that is shared, right?
exactly, everything is shared. So the responsibilities are also shared. You cannot
Shared
say that one
responsibilities.
person sitting in an IT team can look for everything. The delegation for this also needs to be done. If there are 500 people, working with, say, some smart devices, could be smartphones, could be something else, uh, uh, which interact with the cloud service, even a single one, as part of the cloud service of the organization, then all the people, all those 500 people need to be trained about the possible threats. They need to be warned about what cannot be done. And I also add one extra aspect of this, which I kind of missed while discussing earlier, is the legal responsibility. People need to be aware first themselves of what the legal responsibility is, and then to make these people aware, the users in the organization, that if something goes wrong, it's not just the organization which is going to suffer. The investigation and, corrective action, or penal action, can lead to those individuals as well. It has happened in the past, right? And another misconception, if you would like to know, that people normally have is, oh, we don't have any problem in terms of security because we are hiring, some big name, Apple, Google, Amazon. Yes, for the fact that they are providing the service, they have a legal obligation to security. But once the legal, I mean, so once the security path, or I mean the attack path is established as happened from your premises, it's no legal responsibility for those big companies. Their cloud services did not expose anything. It was an exposure in your private network. It's your legal responsibility. And people have paid hundreds of millions of dollars for this kind of problems, assuming that, we have outsourced it, so we don't need to worry about the security. No, the legal responsibility depends on where the exposure happened, and hence you need to be aware of it and make your users aware of it, and also probably, sign legal contracts with them to that extent if you want to.
So,
Mhm.
how would you like to explain the shared responsibility model in cloud security to someone who is unfamiliar with it, right?
Right. So, When you say a shared responsibility model, it basically uh, starts with a lot of uh, like a lot of documentation. Like how do you make someone accountable unless they know about these things, right? When it comes to security, even IT people take it very lightly, very honestly. Uh, a lot of experts, they're like, oh, we'll deal with security at the end of the day. We'll first develop a product, we'll test it, we'll, go through the whatever the uh, the sample group test, and we'll figure out, try to improve our version one, two, three, whatever. And security, as long as we are not making grave mistakes, we'll come to security and we'll hire an expert. They'll figure it out. That's not how security can go. It is very core to the functioning of everything, and cloud especially, because all your data is in there and it is connected. So quite possibly there are 5 different cloud services which you're using, and could be like 10 different departments inside of your organization who are using it. It's not just shared on one level, it is shared on multiple levels. So the responsibility has to be first explained to people, right? It's a very complicated system, it's a very boring thing, but it's very critical, because as I said, when it comes to legal obligations and legal liabilities, if you have lawsuits, and which has been the case in many cases, uh, it's a multi-million-dollar question, and then everybody is trying to wash their hands off the responsibility. But it can only be a healthy culture of documenting things, explaining it to people, making them aware again and again, and also giving them the legal side of it. What penal action could be taken if things can go wrong? And trust me, when we talk about penal actions, people start taking things seriously. I mean, that's just how humans behave. But that has to be done. That has to be done on a regular basis in a friendly way, in an encouraging way. I'm not saying you scare away people, but to make them aware, because otherwise it's not their fault if they fail at things, it's your fault because you never made them aware of the gravity of problems, right?
Right. So people should be aware of their obligation and who is responsible for if
Yes.
something happens. Whose responsibility is this? So
I mean, there's a matrix you can create of what happens and then who's responsible
so
and what should they have done immediately after figuring out that there was a problem. It's not like if there is a mistake, suddenly you become liable for something, but did you act upon the next thing? Was that next action defined? For example, you figure out a vulnerability or you figure out a breach, for example. What do you do next? There has to be an escalation matrix defined for this, and the people should monitor whether the team members have followed that escalation matrix, right?
right. So we have multiple clouds that are we have multi-cloud platforms. So
Mhm.
how do you think the organizations are effectively managing security in multiple cloud platforms, right? We saw
Mhm.
we just now we had an example like organization. We had a shocking insight like organizations sharing passwords across the
Right.
multiple organizations. And so, what measures are actually being taken?
So some organizations are doing this very well. They have a unified policy, even if they are on a multi-cloud setup. They have a unified security policy. They regularly evaluate their vendors, whether they pass the test of whatever these policies require, and they also assess these policies on a regular basis to evolve them based on the changing market trends, basically the threat vectors. So that is something which they do very well. But at the same time, this assessment and change and updation of policies has to reflect on the execution side as well. So many times you would see multi-cloud services being employed, and then there are some which are not being used, right? Maybe for whatever reasons, a service becomes slow, a service becomes less efficient. So the entire team is now moving towards a vendor other than B and C, but they don't discontinue the services B and C. Something, some security. I'm sorry, some uh, workload issue that who's going to move all the data from B and C to A, or we don't have the time for this. Let's focus on A, use it, and move on, and we'll figure out something in next year, and then becomes next year, and so on. But then the B and C services are not only not in use, but the security evaluation that is happening on B and C is also not in use because they're not in use, right? So they're just out of sight, out of mind kind of thing because nobody uses it, so no need to include that in. It's just going to be a waste of time. We probably never used it, touched it since 2019. Good, but just because your company can pay for things like that, you shouldn't continue hosting data there. If you're not using it, then you don't know who was the last person who configured the settings there. He must have left the company by now. These kind of things happen. The ownership of all the access get transferred to the new team. Are the new team members aware of it? Now, I mean, sometimes in the recent 15, 20 years, technologies have changed so fast that people have access to some services, but they don't know how to like deal with it because they are younger people. They come from a newer technology set of tools and they have never touched this old thing. So they're like, just keep it there, let us not all worry about it. As long as the cloud provider says it's safe, it's safe. But these are all real challenges where it's not just the policy definition or design, it is the updation of policy at that level. Then it is about the implementation, and then it is about inclusion of that implementation. What all services are we really using? It could be multi cloud, it could be one, whatever. That too has to be documented and audited regularly. People ignore these kind of things, and then a lot of data remains in some old service, which because the service itself is using a data technology, it's losing customers, so no money, so they have security issues, and then your company data is out in the gray market because of this kind of an ignorance. So that I mean, if you keep talking about security, there are so many dimensions and possible threat vectors that you can keep talking about it whole day. But we have to proactively think of all these problems and and try and implement newer policies on a regular basis. Include that in your documentation, push that through awareness programs, and make sure everybody's on board. It goes with the multi-cloud as well.
Right. Security is a very diverse concept in itself.
It is.
Right. So I have one last question for you.
Yeah.
It is a combination of two questions. So,
Okay.
what advice you would like to give to the organizations who are looking to strengthen their cloud security postures, and what are
Mhm.
the pitfalls that they should be mindful of?
Okay. So when you ask this, what kind of organizations are we looking at? I mean, I know it could your answer could be everyone, but first of all, I don't think I'm an expert on all cloud security, but I would rather say small and medium enterprises or that level of organizations, right? I'm not talking about global conglomerates. They already have smarter people than me in place, but the smaller organizations, less than a few thousand employees, or like less than 10,000 employees or 10,000 uh, team members, I would say they need to focus on the cloud security part more because they have less resources. And as I started the whole thing with mentioning that the bigger the organization, the bigger access to resources they have, the bigger uh, in-house expertise they have, right? So these organizations have a challenge on that level that they don't have the resources to hire those many people. They don't even have the resources to always keep on hiring experts as a consultant or on a retainer basis. So they have to think before they implement uh, newer cloud technologies because everybody is bound to use more and more cloud technologies as we move forward. And there's going to be a multi-cloud situation pretty much everywhere. Even if it's a small team of 10 people, it is going to be similar situation. And with the implementation of these LLM based AI, you know, a lot of cloud services are going to replace what otherwise was done by individuals, repetitive tasks. I'm not saying everything, but that is where we have to start thinking, how many services do I employ? I need to keep a track of it. I need to document those services, their security measures that they implement. Are they compatible with all the other services that I use? Am I putting a unified identity management? If we are putting in that in place, are we integrating it properly? Because that is not an easy thing. um, are we adding enough layers of security uh, that augment this unified identity management to the level that anybody who comes and accesses the different machines, smart devices, personal devices, uh, they cannot have access to the entire company's cloud services based from those devices. And when I'm implementing these kind of policies, I need to keep a continuous cycle, a workflow that improves whatever is being implemented, compares it with what is happening in the market, keeps itself aware that that entire thing is using the best practices in the market. And when this design thing is in place, then I move on to the implementation part. There there has to be awareness sessions all the time. As I said, the legal liability sharing with these people, possible penal actions that can be taken, documented and shared in these sessions. And while all this is happening, we need to have a third party uh, view on things. It cannot be all in house. Why am I saying this? It's not because companies should start hiring more consultants, but it always helps to have a third party helicopter view of things from a distance, which we kind of are blind to because we are in the system and we are like confident of a lot of things, and we stop asking some questions that we should, particularly when it comes to cloud security, because this is not even visible to us, right? On premise was at least physically visible to us. This is now 10 different countries possibly that we are sourcing the cloud services from. And we need to have a third party view on this. That is an important part. It also helps you if there is a legal complication that you have been auditing with some expert company or expert person to kind of make your case watertight when it comes to a problem situation, because problems are going to arise, right? We cannot say that good security means everything is taken care of.
So that was Mr. Gorakh Sirsikar sharing valuable industry insights into cloud security in organizations. We deeply appreciate Mr. Gorakh for taking the time to share his expertise and helping us understand cloud security better. If you found this interview informative, we encourage you to reflect on the key takeaways.